would have helped if I hit the broadcast instead of the record button.
Well, now it's live, so I can see the stream. So yeah.
Yeah. So I just got this stuff, and I got pictures of it. I set it up a little bit. I just got it from Miniature Building Authority. I met Kirk at Gen Con, and I don't have the entire set.
So this is all new stuff beyond what you had in the basement already?
Yeah, absolutely. And this was kickstarted by them last year, and I just got it. When I got off vacation, I got it Friday. So yeah, and we're going to use it in Harpy. We're going to use it for a Harpy adventure.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Right on the docks here. Now
I'm trying to figure out how to do the urban environment in the city.
From the edge of the
Let me turn this down here. Let me turn the sound down here on this.
All those walls.
So the backpack in the middle is our giveaway this Thursday, by the way, from Stratagem. Hopefully Colin sends them. Yeah, it's a figure carrying case. Pretty cool looking.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They are a good company.
I use the Chessex cases when I'm carrying stuff back and forth to conventions.
Nice.
Having something where it all piles together would be nice.
What's good about Stratagem is they, I met with them at Gen Con, and they picked my brain on what other products they need to come out with. So we need some other mats. We need some different colors. The winter mat's the best mat I've ever used. But
you know, it was fun. I commissioned one of the OSR artists to build a homemade battle mat for my business partner John, and it's Barsoom colored.
What color is it?
So it's Barsoom, so it's red desert.
That's John Carter, if you're not paying attention to it.
Oh yeah.
Mars.
So something like that would be really cool.
Allan, I was an English literature major as well.
Me too. Even though I don't do much with it except for Greyhawk stuff these days.
Oh, but that's the important stuff. So it's great. Yeah.
Tim was an English literature major and spent 23 years in the military.
Yeah. You're in touch with the human condition.
Yep.
I spent most of my time professionally in telecom, so nothing to do with English.
See? Yeah.
We all, and I'm a sales rep, so, you figured that out. So, 25 years. Now it's back to the grind tomorrow after coming off a vacation, right?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I hope you had a good time.
Oh, it was great. We had a great time. Here we go. All right, so here comes the new NBA stuff on my table. There it is at the bottom. I took some quick pics and set it up. So this is our Harpy adventure. Now the problem is half the party doesn't want to go find Michael Baton because they hate him so much. So that's I'm worried about that. But what's that?
They need to find him to make sure he's dead.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of Mark's PCs. He's the most hated character in the campaign. Oh, Grendel, you're resubbing before I'm on the front screen. Oh man. Thanks, thanks, Gitano. Yeah. Hey, Frank. Hey, we got Taco on. We got Carlos Licing on. Oh my God, we got Will on. We got Rocks. We got a whole slew of people already on, man. It's gonna be a monster show tonight, guys. So hang tight. 2 minutes. I got a nice entry screen for you, Alan, with some of your stuff here.
I decided I'd go ahead and log into Twitch.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Let's see. How do I do this?
Here comes your welcome screen.
Oh, that's nice.
Hey, thanks,
playing
Ken.
an
I really
ad.
appreciate it, man. Yeah, we're gonna crank out tonight. We're gonna have a lot of fun on this discussion. I think Allan really has some in-depth. I mean, you've done so much; it's just fantastic. But I'm really looking forward to talking to you about stuff like third-party adventures and some of your examples of what you've done with them. That's a topic that I think Greyhawk people, especially cannoneer types, that's something that we can really go in a little depth to and discuss.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's nothing better than taking
there's so much good stuff out there. So, taking it and folding, spindling, mutilating it to fit Greyhawk is like awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have 3 of them on our Wall of Fame that you saw. Out of 24 TSRs, 21 TSRs, 3 of them are third party. So, yeah, absolutely.
Did you get the Dragon Magazine ones up there yet?
No, we haven't done that yet since
Okay.
since you were here, because I've been running around like crazy. But we're going to get those dungeons up. We're going to get those 4 up very soon. All right, guys, we're going to come on, man. So, oh, look at that. Carlos is putting. Oh yes, Carlos says all his favorite people in the world are in one spot. So that's real good to hear. So Carlos, I'm going to tell you a quick story before I come on. You and I got our stones busted because of your opening after Led Zeppelin comment on the last show, by the way. So and you probably remember that. Bill busted our stones about that. Hey everyone, how are you? Hopefully we don't have a PC crash tonight. Please, let's pray. I think we got all that worked out. I'm JK Lord Kazumba. I got Anna Meyer with me to assist. I got the ever mysterious DM Tim. So I had a DM now, Tim, that you've DM'd on the channel. And of course, our very special guest tonight, Allan Grohe, the Grohe Dog. Allan, how'd you get that name? Can we start there? And welcome. Thank you so very much for coming. How did that name come about?
So it's just based off of my last name. So my last name's Grohe, and some friends at Penn State when I was there going through college and learning how to drink properly and all that good stuff. They came up with it. There's my brother Phil also got the nickname when he was in college, so it just seems to go with the name somehow.
Okay, so that's fair enough. I mean, that's very, very, very simple explanation. I thought maybe it's so you were the Grohe Dog, the downer of the brews. Is that it? Something like that? You were like the
well, yeah.
Sounds cool.
Something like that.
My misspent youth. Yeah.
Awesome.
What do you want to do, man?
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks a lot. And there, we got a new follower. It happens to be you. So let me get caught up here, guys. We're way behind. I was off a week. I was family vacation. Thank you all for your patience. I ran a great rerun to Tim on Thursday night. We had a lot of people watch it. Thank you all. But we're back now, and we've got our full schedule going through to September. So Allan was kind enough to come on, and I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for the. We really want to just. We want to. Oh, that's a new follower there. Satori 2046. Thank you so very much for that. Really appreciate it. I can't wait to just delve into some topics, but I wanted to ask you this as well. You started in 1988. Were you like 18? Roughly 19 when you
17, 18, something like that. Yeah, I started playing when I was 7. In 77 with Holmes, and I went to my first con when I was 10.
Nice. Which was which one?
It was at Widener University, so it was Origins in 1980.
Origins East, wasn't it,
Yeah.
back then?
It was. Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, because there was some at Glassboro College.
So they had the gosh, what was the one in Glassboro? It was East Con at Glassboro. And then they had the ones up in North Jersey, the Northeaster cons at Rutgers.
And they also had them right in Cherry Hill off Route 38 at that one.
Yeah. I didn't attend that one. So then they had Gen Con East 1 there in like 81, I think. And then Gen Con East 2 was back at Widener again.
And if anyone doesn't know, here's the irony of all this. Allan and I are very similar, close in age. And I grew up in Barrington, and Allan grew up in Merchantville. What's that, 12 miles?
Yeah.
And we never met each other.
Right.
In South Jersey.
Close as well.
Yeah, exactly, Tim. You're from Haddon Heights. So, it's just the ironies of things. And Allan...
Internet brings us all together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, the early days...
Hey, yeah, Jason was at Gen Con East. He's in the chat.
Oh, Jason's the VOD. Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. Jason, good to see you on. So let me see what Carlos says. Let me kick this off proper. Like, my first question to Allan, what is actually happening in the... Okay, that is all right, we'll start off with a real in-depth question. Did you see that, Allan? And
Thank you, Carlos.
Yes. Well, we'll I know we're going to bounce all over the place tonight. Go for it, Al. What do you? Can you answer that question to Carlos?
Yeah. So Carlos is asking, what's actually happening to the player characters in the Lost Caverns of Sajkant if they step into the magic diagrams in the Pinnacle Room? So I used to think that maybe that was like a separate sub-level or something like that, and as it turns out, it's actually an area that hasn't been really much revealed about in Castle Greyhawk to date. But it takes the characters to the pool level, and this is the area where Irak, not Irak's cousin, but Irak died.
Oh, okay.
And I think it basically is an homage to that encounter from the original Castle Greyhawk. Much like the, if you go in that same encounter area to the level with the centaurs, and that canyon where the centaurs are all trapped, that's an homage to Rob Kuntz's Greek level, which hasn't been published yet either.
Wow. That is probably, I don't know, one of my, I know it's Carlos's favorite module, I think, Showcamp. It's probably top 5 for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely
and it's ancient too. A lot of people don't realize how old it is. It's from what, 75 or 6? It's that
76.
Old. Yeah, that's
Wow.
It is a lost cavern.
Yeah. Who linked, Allan? I'll throw off of that. Who linked that to Tharizdun, the next adventure, or was that just someone just decided they were linked? Showcamp and Forgotten Temple of Tharizdun.
I would guess Gary did. I don't
Okay.
remember particularly reading any detail about the linking between the two. Tharizdun Adventure was kind of written as a. There's been some stuff written about it history-wise, but it was produced and created within a month by Gary, and
Wow.
the art design team and stuff worked and put that together. That's why Eric Shook's mom did the cover art, because she could produce it real quickly.
It was very basic, yeah.
Yeah,
The pink.
and then it used the Fiend Folio very heavily for all the monsters populating, and so it was sort of your Fiend Folio ad book, in the same way that the Lost Caverns of Sajkant became the ad for the Monster Manual 2, the following year.
Interesting. So it just was a Garyism on as far as linking that together. Because I always wondered, because they don't look anything similar, and that you explained that now. I was curious how that connection was made. If it was just because they were in the same area, it just.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Because, and it might have just been that they had somebody. Maybe sales for Lost Caverns were going really well or not going really well, and they thought if they brought something else out that they could piggyback on it one way or the other. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, Carlos, that was a good start off, because I didn't know that at all, and you really enlightened. I imagine you enlightened Anna and Tim and myself on that one with asking that question, Carlos. I appreciate it. So I sent everyone who's on here your resume that you sent me and attachments. Yeah, well, just so they and some of the questions.
It's a mess. Sorry.
Well,
cleaned up and organized.
Over the course of your existence of doing things, when did you realize that this is going to be like a side profession for me, and I'm going to go full tilt with this? I mean, because it looks like you really started ramping up at like early 2000 in that realm.
Well, I did my first freelance project in role-playing stuff in 87, 88 for White Wolf magazine before they published Vampire.
Yeah, I'm going to go to that. Oh, I just went right by it. Yeah, so this is the first one, and you are how old?
I was a freshman, so I was 17, I think, when
Beautiful.
I first wrote that stuff. And then, so from there, I kind of did a little bit more freelance work, and I got hooked up with Pagan Publishing when I came out to KU for grad school. So they were local still in Missouri, and they came down to Lawrence for the CoolCon, KU Lawrence game convention.
Okay.
And that's how I kind of got hooked up with them. And I started doing playtesting for Pagan for all their Call of Cthulhu scenarios and stuff. I did some creative consulting on Delta Green. And then I wrote reviews for The Unspeakable Oath.
Yes.
And
that's up right now.
And that's really what kind of got me started sort of more than just sort of the one-off piece I did for White Wolf.
Could you explain the Unspeakable Oath to everyone? What it's about?
Oh, sure. Yeah,
That'd be
so it's
great.
the Unspeakable Oath is a Call of Cthulhu fanzine published by Pagan Publishing. It started, I don't have one right here, but they started as little digest size books. So they were bigger in format. They're sort of like the size of a Moleskine notebook, maybe a little bit wider originally. And then they eventually went into the 8.5 by 11 format that the one you have here for issue 10 shows. But they were producing all the best Cthulhu material while Chaosium was just, sort of coasting on their laurels in the 90s. For their stuff, and they created Delta Green. It first appeared in the TUO, and then Delta Green won lots of Origins awards and it's had lots of Kickstarters and stuff since. It's probably my favorite Call of Cthulhu environment setting. So
is that your favorite?
Right?
Oh, go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tim.
Oh, that's the modern one, right there.
It is, yeah. So they wrote it in the 90s, and then it just got updated. They did a Kickstarter in 2016, and they're still delivering boatloads of content out of that Kickstarter because they had like 85,000 stretch goals delivered or bought into or something like that. So I get a book or two a quarter from them, and they're still not done. They've got like another probably 10 books they're still going to be coming out with for it. But yeah, it's Cthulhu now, and it's sort of the premise for Delta Green is that it gives the characters a sort of a reason to exist together and be a team, and sort of like what your D&D characters meet in a bar thing. Well, in Cthulhu, it's really hard to kind of pull investigators together in a more realistic setting, unless there's like a murder and you have different people coming together for that. But what Delta Green does is it creates this secret government conspiracy where these people are all fighting against the Cthulhu mythos and trying to save the world behind the scenes. It's just great stuff. So.
Is that your second favorite game system behind D&D?
It's a toss-up probably. I really love Ars Magica. It's got the most elegant magic system that's ever been designed for any role-playing game, in my opinion.
Oh, cool.
And I really like Amber too. So yeah, but probably Cthulhu. Yeah, I mean, if I roll a 20-sider most days, it's going to come up Cthulhu. For number 2 probably.
Cthulhu, I've had some great fun as a player in Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, it's deadly, right? I mean, everyone ends up going insane at some point. I was partially involved in a live action role play with Duff from Players Rejects at Gen Con, watching people getting into an airline, and they're all talking to each other, acting the parts. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. So yeah, it was pretty neat.
My character father, Fergus Phileas McPherson, had some problems after a while. He got a little fur fetish, and he got a little. Did to leave the clergy. He was.
That sounds just like Delta Green.
Hard.
It's cool to see that you can really enjoy other systems too.
I actually stopped playing D&D for a lot of the 90s, other than kind of continuing to keep in touch with Greyhawk. But so the first publishing company I founded was with friends at KU. We were in grad school together, a few of us, and we created a company called Event Horizon Productions. We published games that I had no desire, for the most part, to have anything to do with. They were not my thing. So we did the Hong Kong action theater game in the 90s, and that was sort of Event Horizon's big, and I use the quotes loosely, big accomplishment. But we did publish a fun game toward the end of the time before we folded the company up, called Heaven and Earth, which was a little bit more like Delta Green meets Neil Gaiman's Good Omens, kind of. So it was an end of millennia apocalyptic type game and stuff. It was part of that same zeitgeist in the 90s.
And then so the 90s, where you were bouncing around a lot, because I'm assuming you were at grad school and you had whatever everyone else was playing or was interested in, that's what you were playing at the time. And then when you got done grad school, you're like, I'm going back to D&D. Is that kind of?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got basically sucked back into D&D through the 3rd edition marketing. So I was a victim of marketing.
Oh.
And the return to the dungeon, the return to Greyhawk. I'd gotten back into Greyhawk again. I mean, I'd never really stopped with Greyhawk, but I'd gotten back into kind of following it more actively and stuff when I joined Greyhawk in, I don't know, 97-ish, 98-ish, something like that. And then when 3rd edition came out, they were kind of making Greyhawk part of the core world and trying to, they were talking at that time about having Gary and Rob publish Castle Greyhawk through the RPGA.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and unfortunately, so Eric Mona was one of the projects he was trying to make happen, and that it never came together, unfortunately, thanks to Wizards of the Coast's legal department.
Let's talk about Eric Mona. You published, you co-authored a Dragon article in 294 Artifacts of Earth. Now, was that a synopsis of the ones that were in Dungeon Master's Guide? Did you make up any? I apologize for not printing that out. I should have.
Oh yeah, no worries. Yeah, so it's a compilation. So there were 2 articles together. One was in that issue, and then there was another one a few months later. And I don't remember exactly which is which in terms of the listings, details of which is in which article. But one of the articles is basically a listing of the artifacts, and in it we talked a bit about how to kind of use artifacts in a campaign and put them into play and things like that. And then the other one we detailed some new artifacts. So I'd always been really interested in the Crook of Rao and some of the background from Gygax's WG6 adventure for it, Isle of the Ape, where it kind of talks about that artifact coming back into play and things. But when you compare the descriptions from that adventure to what was done with it with Carl Sargent, they're kind of different sounding artifacts.
Yeah.
So we kind of created the Crook of Rao, and then I think I created the mace or the staff. I don't remember what the other piece was of Rao, as well as to sort of talk to that difference and how they were described and positioned between the two. So my theory was that they used both of these devices to achieve the flight of fiends during the to shut down all of them in the 2E era and get them all the demons out of Greyhawk itself. And then one of those artifacts disappeared and the other became inert or something like that. So, but yeah, we created a few different ones in there. I did a sword called Druniaz, which is an evil, malignant sword spreading the doom dreams of Tharisden, and the name of the sword is an anagram of Tharisden.
Beautiful. I gotta
like
check that out, and then give me some
Eric,
ideas.
Eric wrote a few pieces in it as well.
Awesome.
For sure.
What and Anna, please, if you have a question, I don't want to
No. It's awesome. I'm just listening and enjoying this so much. So,
excellent.
Yeah, it's great. Yep.
What name an artifact you used in your campaign or adventure, and what effects did it have, positively or negatively, Alan? Just one. I want an example of something pretty cool.
Well, I've one of the ones I've really enjoyed is the Kuroth's Quill.
Yes.
And that's one of the ones we wrote up in that piece as well. So that one I always thought was pretty neat. And the idea of having an artifact that would kind of draw your dungeon map for you, of course, is nice. If it would annotate it with other extra information and things. So that's been around in my campaigns here and there. And then we've used the hand of Vecna, the eye of Vecna, the sword of Kos, kind of before, when we've used some of the TSR modules that feature them too.
Excellent.
The Throne of the Gods, I set
Really?
in a place. I set it on the edge of the world of the multiverse in Limbo, overlooking the seas of chaos there at the edge of creation, kind of following Moorcock's idea with that from his Melnibone Young Kingdoms world.
Did any of those, like I know a lot of those artifacts were used through, like the Hand of Vecna was used, in the camp, in the adventure setting and stuff like that. Did you ever decide that I'm gonna throw something at my group or party with like an artifact of power or an item of power, and they don't even see coming, and then they're like, oh my god, that's
Oh yeah.
yeah. Okay. All right.
So my one of the campaigns I did in over high school overlapped with one in college. So we had two different groups of folks gaming in Greyhawk at the same time. My college crew at Penn State, and then my friends back at home still, for my brothers who were younger than me, and the group of friends there. So the characters in the high school group all kind of got corrupted over time. So they were mostly evil characters by then, and one of them was wielding had his hand flensed. It was an evil halfling, and he had his arm flensed off so that he had kind of a hand of Vecna-ish type thing, but he could do Orcus-driven cold undead powers by pointing his fingers in different ways. So sort of a mini hand of Vecna. But those characters were all like 7th or 8th level, and they were all trying to get out there and save the world from the Thea parts from the Gord novels. And they had all sorts of homegrown artifacts and stuff that they were using. And I did the same thing with the college group. So one of the characters in the college group was a friend was played by a friend named Julia, and she was an elf fighter magic user, kind of very bright and fairy-like, and she got a sword that is another Orcus artifact, and it kind of corrupted her a la Stormbringer. And that's actually the one that I had in the AFS article. So
Nice.
it eventually turned her into a vampire.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So you used something in your campaign first, then put it in the article.
Yeah. Well, both.
Good.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So so the but I love having artifacts in play and unique magic items that players don't know about, and I love giving characters really powerful items when they're biting off more than they can chew, and just kind of letting them run with it and see where it goes.
Beautiful.
It's great, and it's fun to corrupt characters as a dungeon master.
Absolutely.
Any other advice?
Both to good and to evil. It works both ways.
Definitely. Good, Tim.
Is there any other advice you would give in having an artifact show up in the campaign?
We had some. We wrote some pieces actually for the article that weren't able to fit into the space that they had in the Dragon magazine for those issues. So those are actually two of the articles I have up on Cannon Fire. So in one of those, it was a big sidebar that I wrote up these other ideas about how you can use artifacts in play, and like having, you kind of build some of the history of the artifact and decide what sages know about it that still exist, what information exists and who knows about it.
Right.
And then, what's sort of the data wake of the artifact? Does it have some sort of aura or some corrupt influence that you can kind of track across the Flan S over time? Mm-hmm. So there's some stuff in there that might give you some ideas about.
Is that on the Cannon Fire website, or is that on the Cannon
Fire? It is.
Okay.
Yeah,
website.
If you go to my profile, you can see the 23, 25 articles, whatever it is.
Sounds like
there. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I would have liked to have seen it be able to appear in the article itself, but Eric only had so much room, so that stuff got left on the cutting room floor, unfortunately.
Damn.
Better review, Jay.
What's that?
Gotcha. What'd you just say?
I said you better review. You better take some notes.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I know you're taking notes too, so that's what scares me. Because when I get to play, it's normally in Tim's game, so I gotta be prepared for almost anything. In fact, Allan,
asked that question by accident.
A couple weeks ago, I got teleported a mile up in the air and dropped my character, so that was fun. So
did you live?
I had a ring of feather falling. So
excellent.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, 13th level cavalier. And almost got splatted there, but
what happens when you fight demons?
Yeah, I know. It's absolutely correct.
Yep.
So
why fight you when I can just drop you?
Yeah, exactly. Definitely.
Teleport without error. It's not your friend as a player character.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Fun times though with Tim playing. I just love with Tim DMing. I just love being able to play again. So Allan, will you explain the term Osric to everyone and where we are with it today?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
So Osric is the first open source retro clone for AD&D first edition.
Okay.
There have been a few others I think that have been published since. So Labyrinth Lord kind of does a lot of AD&D focused design, and there's been one for second edition called For Gold and Glory, if I remember right.
What about
Um,
Castles and Crusades? Where does that fall in?
So that's not really a retro clone in the same way. So Castles and Crusades was one of the early old school rule systems that was developed by the Troll
Okay.
Lord Games guys.
Okay.
And it came out in like 2002-ish or something like that.
Okay.
And they kind of created a game as they created it really as a vehicle to help Gary and Rob publish Castle Zagig, is sort of how it came,
Okay.
why it came to be. And the irony, of course, is that they never really got to publish Castle Zagig in whole. But anyway, so Osric, unlike other earlier games like CNC or like Hackmaster, was really designed to emulate AD&D and reproduce it faithfully, and not to just sort of take your favorite house rules and turn those into the rule set that you want it to be, or whatever changes the designers decide to make in the games. So it was initially conceived of as a vehicle for publishers, so that people could use it as a baseline from which you could then publish AD&D adventures and source books from all the stuff we write up in our home campaigns. But there was, and that version of it, the 1.0 version, was published in 2006 or so. And then over time, people were asking, well, why doesn't it have all the stuff you need to actually play the game? And it's just sort of a reference document rather than actually, you couldn't play the game without the AD&D rule books.
Right.
And people really were asking for that. So over time, the Osric development team added the rest of that stuff that you need to
that
publish to play, using the game Osric itself. So you could pick up the Osric book and play with it now. If you've never had a AD&D hardback and stuff. Now, at that time, AD&D was still very sort of disparaged largely by most of the publishing community in terms of like non-old school publishers and stuff. And certainly WotC wasn't spending any time and effort on it in any way. And the old rule books were all out of print and weren't really very accessible to folks. So being able to have a cheap, good, affordable book that's high quality for first edition is really what drove our interest in publishing it from the Black Blade side of things.
Okay. We haven't even talked about that. So let's get Carlos has another question. So we're going to do a Carlos question. Always a Carlos. Carlos asked about your relationship with Rob Kuntz and how interacting with him has influenced your aesthetic with regard to adventure and source material design.
Oh my gosh.
Good one.
So I met Rob in 1987 at Dragon Con #1 in Atlanta.
Wow.
And so this is my freshman year of college. I had found out that Michael Moorcock was going to be the guest of honor at Dragon Con #1. And if there's anybody that I've worshipped in my life more than Gary Gygax, it's Michael Moorcock. And I went down there to meet him for the first time, which was great. And in wandering around the Dragon Con dealers hall and stuff, I found Rob Kuntz at his booth. And I was like, Rob Kuntz! And so that's how I met Rob. And he had the first 2 of his Creations Unlimited adventures, Maze of Zane, that he was selling there. So I bought those. And in fact, he might have had the 3rd and the 4th. I guess he did, probably. And I didn't have enough money to buy the 3rd and the 4th at the time because I was a penniless 17-year-old. So I got his address and wrote to him to purchase the other 2 adventures. And then he came out with Garden of the Plant Master the following spring, I think. And I picked that up from him. So I started writing him letters after having met him at the con. And we had a, good old-fashioned letter correspondence relationship for a while. And then I started working with, and then he was like on Grey Talk in the 90s by the time I was on there, although he wasn't as active, I think, by then, but he was
Allan,
still there.
was Rob Kuntz's was Necromancer Games his company?
No. So in the '80s, it was his own company, his first
Okay.
company, Creations Unlimited.
Okay. Because I know they
So
reprinted it. Maze is saying.
they did,
Okay.
yeah. So when the OGL and stuff came out with third edition, then Rob hooked up with Necromancer Games, and his intention at that time was to publish his City of Brass materials. Now that stuff had been in development prior, at least for a while, because I played in the City of Brass RPGA tournament at Dragon Con. Our team was actually the winning
wow.
team for the tourney, and I always held it against Dragon Con for not getting me my trophy. I wrote them letters because the guy who was running Dragon Con at the time was actually running the Nomads of the Time Streams Michael Moorcock Fan Society too. But anyway, so I'd write to him periodically and say, "Where's my trophy?" Never got it. $2.
Yeah, better off dead reference, guys.
So anyway, so I met Rob then, and then when he started putting the thinking process together for all the work he wanted to do for Pied Piper, he and I got back in touch again in like 2001 or so, and then I kind of worked with him ever since. So we did a lot of work in Pied Piper together. On getting his various adventures published and structured. I did some editing, where he would let me, and help manage some of the projects, and did a lot of coordination for him online with the Pied Piper forums and things like that. And then Black Blades reprinted some of the books that he did back during the Pied Piper days, and the most recent one of those was the Bottle City adventure, which we up leveled back to AD&D from the OD&D roots in the way that it was published in
Let me get to that.
by Pied Piper.
So I see that you we haven't even talked about your current company, Black Blade Publishing. John Hirschberger, you as your partner.
Yeah.
With that in 2009, how'd that come about, if I may ask?
So John and I met through the Necromancer Games fan forums.
Okay.
And
Love that stuff.
In the late 90s, in 1999, I had accepted a job. I guess it was early 2000 actually. I accepted a job to go to work for Juniper Network. So I moved away from Kansas and went out to California, where we lived for 5 years. And when we were looking at moving back so that we could really afford to buy a house, among other things, John is based in Wichita. My wife's family is here in Wichita. So we moved back here, bought a house, and then I joined up with John and started playing in their games. They had just started kind of getting back to playing D&D for his campaign. They play in the Wilderlands of High Fantasy from Judges Guild, and he's DM'd that campaign as the primary DM for us for the last almost 15 years. So that's how I got hooked up with John and Black Blade, and then we did a variety of publishing projects since then. We started out with some adventure conversions from Goodman Games. We did work with Swords and Wizardry before Matt got set up with Frog God. Matt Finch got set up with Frog God Games.
I was going to ask
and then we did and switched over to Osric at that point. We've tried to champion Osric ever since. So the version of Osric we have, we publish it as a really high quality hardback. So it's on high quality paper. It's thicker paper, and we put in additional artwork. Jason Zavoda did a wonderful index for us.
Oh, cool. Excellent, Jason. Great to hear.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So that's been fun to do.
If someone wanted that book right now, where could they get it? Could they get it on Amazon, or could they get it through you? Just let's give yourself a quick plug.
You get them through us. You can get in contact with us through our Facebook page. So it's Black Blade Publishing on Facebook.
Okay. Do you want to, in a second, throw a link down, please? Feel free.
Sure.
Throw a link down into the chat. Please, I'd love to, we're not beyond giving some good, because I'd love to see it. I've never seen it.
What is that map showing up now?
What's that? Yeah, that's a good question. So Tim? Well, that is a great question.
So speaking of Rob Kuntz, that's the Bottle City map from Castle Greyhawk.
Yes.
So this is it's an what would that be? 17 by 20, it's 11 by 17 doubled, so it's 22 by 34 map. And it's the one of the locations in the expanded Castle Greyhawk, or what I call the expanded Castle Greyhawk. I don't think Rob really likes the term expanded castle, but that's what I call it. But it's a place where the characters who were playing in the version of Castle Greyhawk that Rob and Gary were DMing together could meet with and interact with the 9 imprisoned gods and demigods, just like he and the original players did in Gary's original version of the castle.
Like Zuokin.
So, yeah, well, before Zuokin existed, but yeah. But so the area on the right side of that map is the really huge room. There is this gigantic multi-football field-sized room where you can actually go and do combat with the avatars of the gods of Greyhawk. And if you defeat them, you can win a prize. And if you die, well, you die.
Now, Alan, this map looks almost similar to a level in Expeditions to the Ruins of Greyhawk, the hardback book. Did they rip this off, or did
Which
they?
map?
The Kuntz map. The Kuntz map. I thought it was similar. Is it not? Is it just me just thinking it is?
Well, the map you're showing right now is
No.
one of my maps. That's
Yeah,
not Rob's.
no. The Kuntz map. I was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, one of the levels. Did they take parts of it, maybe, or no? Or am I just
Not
hallucinating?
that I'm aware of.
Okay.
They may have done a little bit of homage to it,
Right.
perhaps.
Okay.
Eric did a really good job with that book to try to pull in a lot of the original campaign materials, or as
Okay.
much as was really possible.
Right.
But I don't think there was any arrangement for them to include any Bottle City or any of Rod's Pied Piper content directly in the book.
So some of it may have just been a coincidence, or they may have done an homage.
It's-
Oh, look at this!
It's
Yeah.
this map.
Wow!
Yeah,
hmm
yeah, it's huge.
Yep. I got a copy too. I actually drove Rob Kuntz around LA when he was here.
Oh yeah,
It was
that's
like
right.
6-7 years. I think it was 6 years ago.
For one of those documentaries.
Exactly,
Yeah.
a documentary. They interviewed him, and they wanted my map in the background. So that's why they got in touch. So I actually picked him up at his hotel, and we drove there, and I drove him back again and stuff. So with the crew that did the documentary, that kind of fizzled out and disappeared into nothing a few years afterwards.
Yeah.
I think
It
in
seems
some
like an
sort of,
awful lot of those documentaries have died on the
they
vine.
seem to be, so
Yeah.
hold my thumbs and hope the latest one will actually come to fruition. So yep. So he gave me this as one of the trophies. Yep.
That's nice. So Carlos, you were asking a little bit earlier about sort of the influence that Rob had on me. So, imagine meeting like, your favorite dungeon designer as a 17-year-old geek, and like, it was immense influence over my design sensibilities. So the map that Jay was showing now is one of my maps for my Castle Greyhawk, and I drew that one sort of after spending a lot of time over a couple months and chatting with Rob about old Castle Greyhawk levels and the history of them, and I sat down and kind of designed that map in one night as a sort of in that style. So I kind of had subtitled it "Drawing Under the Influence of Gygax and Kuntz." So
it's like you get scarred and addicted at the same
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So Rob's had a lot of influence, as has Gary, of course, on my design sensibilities. But I really like the style of maps that he creates. I love the open-ended nature of his adventures, where his adventures, just in and of themselves, by the way he designs and creates them, have 6, 8, 12 additional places where you can expand them and go off, and the players can run off in this tangent and that tangent and do stuff. And I think that's one of the things that really got me as a dungeon master as a kid, starting to look beyond the page of what TSR was giving you in a module, because Rob's material had all this additional stuff there. And then he was like the only designer that in the Mordenkainen's Fantastic Adventure module in particular, where he didn't number every single room on the map. There were rooms on there with no numbers and no nothing about them. So if you
Yeah.
wanted to add stuff, you could. So his maps really encouraged me in that way to kind of build my own material on top of what was there, take some ideas and run with it for developing on my own. And that's what I really think a good module and a good designer does, is they give you that foundation and those hooks so your players can pick, whatever hooks my players might be completely different than what hooks your players might be different than Anna's players. So that's had a lot of shape on
the
me.
bad guys to get away.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yours always do, Tim. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Not my last one.
Oh, yeah. But so that Alan, that's a real very descriptive on Rob's influence on you, and I really appreciate that. And Carlos, thank you for that question. That was a great one to ask. So with Black Blade Publishing now being your main your main company where you do what do you look for in like a third party person or someone, or is it people that you're intimate with as far as what you'll put out as a company, for Black Blade? Is it is there something specific you're looking for? Old school content? You're looking for something
Yeah.
different? I was just curious.
We largely kind of drive projects ourselves, and it seems like there's so much DIY work that folks do out in the OSR community as a whole, as well as in the Greyhawk community, that we'll occasionally get approached by folks looking to do some freelance work for us or things like that. But for the most part, we're kind of driving our own projects and agendas. We've got a big spreadsheet of stuff that we eventually like to publish, and for people who are both sort of currently around, authors, as well as folks who designers who have passed on, like Tom Moldbay. I've got a number of unpublished manuscripts of Tom's that I had talked with his sister about soon after he had died, about trying to publish some of that stuff, and she was very interested at the time, and then we kind of fell out of touch. And
that's
I'd like
why
to get back in touch and see something like that happen at someday. But
that's why with close friends, you can rely on them, right? And that's why my games started together all these years because they're my close friends. You can rely on certain people, and that's why you have a comfort zone. I completely understand that. What's the most exciting thing you think you're working on right now?
Well, let's see. I've got a whole number of sort of Greyhawk projects I'd like to be working on more on my blog and such, but I've got two that I'm kind of working on aggressively right now. So one is an adventure I'm working on with Guy Fullerton. Guy runs the Chaotic Henchman Productions company, and he and I and some other folks are working on sort of another collaborative project. It's not really, I guess, a community project. It is a little bit, but it's some of the folks who are on the Knights and Knaves Ale House, which is sort of a bastion of 1E AD&D insanity. But we're working on an adventure to be basically a charity support type project, and I'm not going to say much more about the details on that yet because I'm not sure I'm allowed to. But so I've been working on that. So I was actually doing some treasure design for that earlier today and passing some details back to that for Guy. So I took one of my maps. I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not. So,
sure,
excuse me,
put it right up there. We'll
Guy
be able
took
to
one
see
of my maps. So this is a map. Let's see.
I know it's tough to do. There you go. That's good.
Go.
Wow.
So this is one of the maps I had drawn and worked on up on Knights and Knaves. I've published a ton of my maps up there as well as on my website. But he took this one and then sort of chopped two-thirds to half of it off, and then kind of added his own design stuff to it for this adventure. And so we've been going through and kind of trying to get that wrapped up. So this will be another adventure, I think, that's going to be about the same size as the Withered Crag adventure here.
Nice.
That you're showing.
And that's up right now. That's up right now. Yeah.
So it'll be a short little adventure, a single level piece in here like Withered Crag was. Well, Withered Crag was really a bunch of smaller levels kind of stitched together. But And then, so that's one I'm working on. And then I'm working on my Ionic Caverns level, which is one of the levels of my version of Castle Greyhawk that I've run at a bunch of old school conventions over the years. And I'm trying to get that one done for GaryCon, so it'll be available for that. And that's one of the other, that's the map you had to turn sideways.
Yes, and I'm sorry about that because it would
No,
just
that's
be all
okay.
squished
Yeah.
together if it was,
Yeah.
you know, on the way we have it stretched out and all. But so let me ask you that question. Castle Greyhawk, I know it's like a love of yours. What do you overall? What drew you to it? And you can also talk about the Castle of Raja, please.
Oh,
Right.
sure.
I know we have that down on our topics here. What do you think drew you to that? Was it just because of the scope of it, or was it just because it was really never finished properly early on, or what do you think?
Probably a little bit of all of the above on that. So I got really interested in Greyhawk, I think, from sort of a scholarly research point of view because of all the content that Gary was publishing in Dragon magazine back in the day. And he and Rob had those articles, writing up in the From the Sorcerer's Scroll column or the Greyhawk's World column about what's happening for events in Greyhawk and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then Dragon occasionally published an index update, and they did one in Dragon 76 that that gave you sort of the visibility for somebody who didn't have an issue, all the way back to the beginning, issues all the way that far back into what had been published. So that was sort of my first foray back into trying to research old Greyhawk content and find it from Dragon and be able to, incorporate it into my games and just see what was there. So that's how I ended up tracking down issue number 37, which is the one that has stats for Irak's cousin and Robilar in it, and then it's got the wonderful Ed Greenwood article about the Gates stuff, which is one of the themes for Greyhawk stuff, and not just Greyhawk, but like D&D stuff in general that I really love is Gates and planar material and things.
And there's a lot of them in Castle Greyhawk.
There sure are. So the castle was always something that we heard about. Gary would talk about it.
Right.
Rob and Eric Shook are working on it, or he and Rob are working on it, or whatever. But we never got it. So I had built my own version of Castle Greyhawk eventually as a kid, and then I used a lot of the scaffolding for that in my more contemporary campaigns and stuff I've done for design and such since then. But it's still the original. You love the original and seeing all those details and hearing about Robilar and Tenzor and all those characters running around it.
It's just like treasured old history,
Yeah,
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's like it's so nostalgic. It's like how we talk about our characters back in the the 80s. Oh my God, I'm getting old. And it's just like it's nostalgic to know that these characters were actually going in and doing these adventures, and it's just like it entices you. I think and you just wanted to expand on it, I'm assuming, and just make it your own, right? Was that?
I did. Well,
Yeah.
I kind of like when we were waiting for T2 to be published. Just like where is it?
Oh my God. Oh yes.
And then it's like, well, okay, I guess if there's going to be a Castle Greyhawk, I'm going to have to design it myself, because I bought the joke version of Castle Greyhawk after Gary had gotten out of the ousted from the company. And that, along with the Greyhawk Ruins book, were like the only two D&D books I ever returned to my favorite bookstore in Cherry Hill Mall that I used to buy books from, Cherry Hill Books.
Oh wow! Wow.
Yeah, I was so pissed off. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Oh, I know. You're
Greyhawk.
like, what? Oh, it was such a spoof, and you're like,
I know.
Oh my gosh! You got those monsters with the tongue sticking out in the cover. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! I was so disappointed too. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
That's kind of similar to how I got started to do my Greyhawk map, because the TSR released a catalog back in, I think it was like 96 or something like that, when they actually said the Atlas of the Flanese or Atlas of Greyhawk, and he was mentioned, and he got the ISB number, and I was like, yes, it's coming, and nothing happened, and it didn't come, and it was like, damn, I have to do it myself because it's not coming out. So that's actually when I got the push to actually start sitting down, because I was like waiting because they were talking about it. It was mentioned and hinted at, and then it came in the catalog, and I was part owner of a game store, so we got the catalog early, and I was like, yes, it's coming, and then it didn't come. So yeah.
And thank goodness it never came, because your stuff's 85 times better than it would have been anyway.
Well,
so
actually, I think it was the thing that came out was the Paizo map of
Yeah.
Greyhawk. I think that was the map that was intended for that.
Oh,
Was-
okay.
Yeah, I think it was what Paizo released some years
The one
after.
that was in
The
four
ones in
parts.
Dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. In Dragon
Okay.
magazine, or Dungeon magazine. I forgot which one. It was one of them. They was 4-part
Yeah, you're right.
that
Yeah.
they did. Yeah, back in the early 2000s. So yeah.
So, has anyone ever successfully completed your Castle Greyhawk, your version?
Oh gosh, no. No, it's so big. I mean,
I was
there's
curious.
no way to compete it.
Yeah,
Alan,
But like,
that's awesome.
is there
yeah,
a goal
in the
to zero out,
original
or is
version,
it
you know,
goal to
the
go
goal was to get down to the very bottom level, and that's when Gary then, whisked Rob's character off to China, and eventually whisked Ernie's character off to China, and the other players too.
So
Um,
China is actually connected somehow. So we know
Right.
that now. Okay. Yeah.
Oh man. Well,
So
that's
I did design a level 17 level map, and it's on 10 square to the inch graph paper, and and that's the bottom level of my castle.
Oh my
What's that?
gosh. What was that, Tim?
10 squares to the inch, so it's like each square is 1/10 of an inch,
That's right. Yeah.
like a caliber, like ammo. All right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can you imagine
I
the size?
support that.
Oh my gosh.
And
Yeah,
it's the size of your living room floor and something. So yeah.
Well, it was just one 11 by 17 sheet for that level. So but that's the bottom level in the castle. But no, nobody's ever gotten down to that one to actually meet the
Okay.
blitz
that-
there and stuff like that. But
Well, maybe one day.
yeah,
But,
Well,
the
but that's
cool-
okay.
As he died.
Yeah. That's
The
wow.
point of the journey, is the journey.
Absolutely. And the journey could take a lifetime.
That's
Well,
right.
you don't have to go into that place. I mean, you could do forays into it for a specific purpose and not have to go to the bottom.
Oh,
right?
of course.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So you could say they did complete their adventure there.
Oh,
Yeah, but
for
they-
sure. Yeah.
Adventure.
Yeah.
And
Lots of adventures have completed, and lots of levels have completed adventurers in my Castle Greyhawk.
I would consider it militarily. That would be like they're doing an adventure raid. They're not going in to like take it all out. They're just
That's
hitting
right.
a spot and getting out.
and
That's right.
That's what they were successful in doing in expeditions, which we ran right before we started streaming. Was they took pieces of it and they kind of made a whole Ayu's armies coming to invade, and the Igwolf clone and all the other stuff that was going on. So they kind of weaved it through the story, and you trap Ayu's again, and he gets away, of course, but you get the idea. They made it so that you could get some pieces of it and not have to go through the entire thing. It was cool, but no one's ever, I guess, finished. It's so huge. It's
I think
so,
no mega dungeon is ever finished.
right.
I-
Kind of like wrapping out through too, as well. It's,
Yeah,
You have to
exactly.
get
Yeah.
some orbit.
yeah. It's
Yeah. So like I play in a Monday night game that Bill Sylvie Dungeon Delver runs, and it's set in
Okay.
Greyhawk. And it's been great playing in Greyhawk as opposed to DMing it. I love DMing, of course, but it's nice to play in somebody else's version. So we've spent a lot of time in his version of Castle Greyhawk.
Oh, okay.
Which is really very different than mine and other ones I've seen. And it's been a lot of fun.
Is that in person or is that VTT?
No,
or-
that's online.
Okay.
So he's in Florida and I'm in Kansas, and other
Wow.
people are scattered around the country, West
Well,
Coast and stuff.
That's a good thing about though. At least you can get together, and talk to each other and still do it, and people bounce all over the country, and it's tough. I can understand why a lot of people lose their groups, but now at least with new technology, people are getting back together and playing again, which is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. On that, Castle Araja, is that
So El Raja K is Rob Kuntz's
Okay.
main castle. So it's a pun play on his initials, RJK.
got it? Okay.
And so he He hasn't published the whole of El Raja K, I don't believe, but he has a whole bunch of the content for that, along with a number of his Castle Greyhawk levels in his El Raja K archive, which he published at the end of 2016.
Okay.
Let's see, I'll put a link to that up.
Great,
On, 'cause
thank you.
Paul Stormberg, and he completed that project.
Cool.
Let's see, but it basically has over 1,000 pages of Rob's manuscript content available, and it spans stuff that's actually older.
How many pages?
Over 1,000 pages of content of stuff in there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So he's got like there's like 100 pages of content about the Lost City of the Elders in there or so.
Beautiful.
Which is mentioned in his WG5 Mordenkainen's Fantastic Adventure module. He's got notes about his City of Brass adventures, just all tons of stuff in there. And it goes all the way back to material from when he and Gary had just come back from playing their very first game with Dave Arneson. And the next day they got together and Gary said, okay, so you're going to DM me, or they didn't have the word DM yet, but you're going to referee me through an adventure. And that thing that he and Gary did together before D&D even existed yet is in the archive, among other things.
Wow. That's why you never throw anything out, ever.
That's right.
You never throw a piece of paper away. You always keep everything because you never know when you'll have to go back there. And like you said, how big is your stash of paper, Alan? Seriously, I mean, I got like bins full of it, and I don't even know what's in half of them. I mean, seriously, you got like it's heavy, right? It's tough.
I'm very glad to have a house now instead of an apartment when you're in California.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's
the
notebook
paper
upon
piles are they're right here, thankfully out of camera range.
Yeah, that's okay. Understood. Because I mean, that's your library, your archive. And is there? Do you have a system? Because like I have a color coded system, but they always fall off of the notebooks, and then I'm like, where's the orange notebook? And I can't find the one reference to something I need to find. It takes 7 days to find it, but you found out all this other stuff you forgot about. I mean, that's what happens to me all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still looking for one of my Pagan Publishing chapbooks that I pulled out to read. It got put somewhere safe so I wouldn't spill water on it, and it hasn't reappeared yet. So it fell into non-Euclidean space in my collection.
So it's
something so securely that you can't find it. I have also recently been plagued by that.
Yes, absolutely. You've lost some stuff too. We've all lost stuff, and
I thought I'd lost actually Gary's and my correspondence with Rob and Gary. It was lost in my parents' house for probably 10, 15 years, and I just refound it in my old TSR Dungeon Hobby Shop shipping box when I was home, probably about I don't know, maybe it was like 8-10 years ago now, but that was missing since I was in college.
Wow.
So I was very happy to find that again. That had my my notes of to Gary when he was at New Infinities, and when I was sending Rob all my tell me all the secrets of Greyhawk because I'm 17 and I think you should phase.
And Alan, I want to say a thank you, and this goes back 2 years. This goes back almost 9 months before we even started streaming. When Bill Haley contacted, you said you had the Hidden Temple of Erythal, right?
Yeah.
So I finally got this a couple weeks ago. And you got that for us, and Bill emailed it to Bill, and we're still playing it, and we're continuing this on Thursday. And that was 2 years ago, and I was like, man, this will fit right in here, and boom, 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 down the line. But I wanted to say thanks. Bill put that in chat.
You're welcome.
Thank you for, because there's hidden gems out there like this. And so, guys, we're going to open this up now to, let's do some general Greyhawk talk. What do you think here?
Sure.
And we got a lot of cool things down. And one of them I'd like to say is, let's get on this, third-party D&D ventures. Like what do you look for? I know how I do it. How do you incorporate them into your Greyhawk setting? I know you do a lot of homebrew, like published modules, like Goodman Games stuff, which is great, or Expedition Retreat Press stuff, which is 1E, 2E as well.
Yeah.
What do you do with that?
So, so one of the things I was actually starting to work on for my blog was a sort of an inventory of what I consider the best third-party city products in the role-playing stuff, and then starting to map them to Greyhawk cities that don't have maps and haven't had anything designed for them and things like that.
Oh, cool idea.
Because there's a ton of awesome city stuff that's been published over the years. Really small press stuff like Hess Games, who were down in South Jersey at the shore at Ventnor.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, did not know that.
Yeah. So they published these dungeon. They had kind of generic dungeon maps they would publish, and then they had a really big city map, kind of the size of the City State of Invincible Overlord stuff. So they were publishing that stuff in the mid to late 80s or so, up into maybe the early 90s. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff like the Midkemia Press materials. Chaosium republished some of those for RuneQuest, but they were all published originally for D&D, and they had like a collection of small towns called Towns of the Outlands. They had a couple of named cities like Toulon and Kars and Jonril. So being able to take cities like those, as well as the really cool ones from like MERP maps and stuff, and pull them into Greyhawk and stuff. So I was starting to kind of work on something like that earlier in the year as sort of an offshoot of my mileage distance chart and stuff,
which is super cool. Does everyone know about that? It's in the Earth Journal, the Gary Kahn edition of Earth Journal. So if you haven't seen it, it really helps out. Let me just go, and you can pull it right off of Greyhawk Online. It's in 28, Earth Journal 28.
Yeah, issue 28. Yep.
Yes, and this I'm pulling up here this version. Wait a minute, I'm gonna be Mr. I got one, and you two do. I got one, and you do. Okay, so we got one of 100 copies that exist of this Gary Kahn Earth Journal version. So please take a look at that. It's really cool, the mileage chart. How did you work that out? I mean, was it just all...
I just counted hexes and did math. Several people made some suggestions when I was blogging about this, about ways you could kind of automate some of that and kind of feed it into Excel. And I'm okay with Excel, but I'm not that good at Excel.
Right.
So I wasn't going to do any kind of programming macro work.
The odometer and check, just did it yourself.
Oh man, yeah, try. It's very useful. Absolutely. I love the meetings of the minds of that Earth Journal. I just everyone who you Allan, Anna, Will, Brian Blumklotz, Christoph. I know I'm missing someone. Carlos. I mean, it was fantastic. It was
a lot of fun to put together.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
So actually, Sir Zaris over on Cannon Fire, when I had mentioned some of the in some of the Greyhawk fan forums about our chat tonight, he mentioned that he thought it would be good to see us plug Cannon Fire and the Earth Journal and the Cannon Fire Chronicles in particular.
Okay. Where are the Cannon Fire Chronicles?
So those were kind of like little mini zine Earth Journal pieces that were published up on Cannon Fire also, and they were basically designed as if I'm remembering these right, as in-campaign kind of herald announcements you could use about news and things like that.
Okay, cool.
So fun stuff you can definitely use in your games.
So yeah, Tim, you scared Carlos away. So
what the heck? I was totally just funning.
I know you were just messing.
I was totally funning.
I know you were messing. So
well, I was responding to him making a comment about how genteel everyone was.
I know.
Shut up.
I know.
Smiley face on it, and then he hasn't been back.
Carlos he's absorbing. So
That's terrible.
It's okay. Allan, the question that Will had, how do you get around using specific names and location names to keep it unrecognizable? I don't think you really worry about that, do you?
No, I don't care.
Yeah.
Keep it true
Yes.
to Greyhawk.
Yes.
But there are good ways to do that. So like one of the ways that Rob did this when he was publishing Bottle City was he would take the name of the Greyhawk gods and then create an analog for it that was very close. So a Rithnul became a Rathnul, that kind of thing.
And
And
Carlos
that's
does the same thing.
yeah.
Marquesa
And,
with a Q. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, or you can do kind of generics for it too. The Witch Queen of the North is
Big Wolf.
nothing that's
Yeah.
IPable.
Right.
So
Right.
Yeah.
everybody who knows Greyhawk knows that's Igwilf. So
That's pretty realistic. Wotan, Woden, and Odin.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's a lot of there's a lot of things around that you can do around that. But do you have everything you publish now or look to publish? Do you always think to yourself where I'm going to put this in Greyhawk if it's setting like the Withered Crag? Do you have an idea where you would put that if it was Greyhawk or where?
So I don't necessarily think of that for every project, in particular for ones that I do with other people that are not necessarily coming from the Greyhawk community.
Okay.
So Guy knows Greyhawk stuff, but we didn't design the Hyqueus Vault and he didn't design Withered Crag as a Greyhawk
Okay.
fitting project from the ground up. So I think one of the good signs of a good, well-designed adventure is that you can insert it in any game environment or system, whether that's you're playing in Middle Earth or you're playing in the Young Kingdoms or you're playing in Greyhawk.
Okay. Excellent. Let's see here. All right. So, rules variants. I know you put that down. Are you a 1E purist, or do you have some little twitches, little different things you use? Or
I
you
don't
do
think
some...
anybody's a pure.
Well, yeah,
but I mean-
Leonard Lakofka is a purist.
Well, okay.
Oh, you
I know. Hey, you said Leonard Lakofka in your presentation at Gen Con, so just remember that, Anna.
Okay. Yep. Yep. We have this thing. We always have to mention Little Kafka in everything,
talk show,
every episode, whatever. So, yep.
Leonard does great work.
Oh yeah, fantastic. That's
so,
what we want to
yeah.
honor him by always make sure that we mention him because it's awesome. And he's such an awesome guy. So
Yeah, one of my other unpublished blog posts is sort of a compilation of Leonard's articles and magazines that he's published over the years and stuff to try to kind of shine a little bit of light there.
Yep.
But it's still in draft. So.
So there you go. Carlos responded. Tim, you feel better now? So
I feel better now, man. I was just funny. I was like, oh, dude.
Yes,
no.
everyone was being genteel. It was a joke, Carlos. Sorry. So, all right. So you're basically a 1E with thrown in with a lot somehow. Give me a couple examples, and I'll like for example, me. I'm group initiative. I just because the way we do tabletop miniatures, it's better for me to do initiative based on location of figures, right? It just works better for us, and it speeds game up. So, what would be a little tweak that you do in your 1E?
Yeah. So like, so I kind of have to explain some, house rules when I'm running one of my Castle Greyhawk games at GaryCon or North Texas or something like that.
Okay, cool.
So I'll, I don't use a critical hit table, but I do use critical hit. So if you roll a 20 and you don't already need a 20 to hit, or more, then it basically represents a perfect hit. So you'll score maximum damage.
Okay.
On the flip side, if you roll a 1, you need to roll a 4d6 roll to you stumble first of all, so you're +2 to be hit the next round. You then need to roll a 4d6 or more roll, depending on your tactical situation, to retain a hold of your weapon. If you lose your weapon, it's a 4d6 roll against your dex.
Okay.
And then if you lose the weapon, I use the grenade-like missile chart to figure out where it lands.
Oh man. Okay.
So that's one of the house rules I've got.
Nice.
What about in more campaign-oriented play? I'll do. I replace elves infravision with ultravision.
Okay.
It's too hard to kind of adjust that with people on the fly and at a convention. But,
okay. What about 2E? Like specialty priests or like wild mages, no go or.
I definitely follow Gary's lead with the Greyhawk box set. to make tweaks and such to the various powers that the gods give their followers and clerics and stuff. So I used the plethora of paladins article to create alternate versions of paladins.
Tim likes that.
Well, I'm a traditionalist when the paladins go. I'm waiting to hear your wild mage comment.
I like some of the stuff for the wild magic stuff, but I never played 2E back in the day. So I stopped kind of playing it at 1E, or never, and then I picked up again. I played some 3E, but I never played 2E.
So no wild magic.
I think there's stuff I would use wild magic for, like Zagig, for sure.
Or call the chaotic.
Or for like magical fallout areas, chaos, winds of limbo, things like that.
Because it sounded like when you were in the 90s, you came in at third. So
that's right.
Are you still of the mindset, like if someone were to one of your friends would want to DM 5e, what would you do? Would you play it, or would you say let's?
I haven't learned 5e.
Okay, I played it twice, Alan. So I'm asking because I know people would like to know. I played 2 games, and that's when Brian DMs on a Saturday night special, and Anna plays in that game, and we play 5e, and it's using Fantasy Grounds. And Will's played in it once, and Bill has played. So it's fun, but it's just I don't know. I'm an old school guy, and I think our group is. So what
1E is my default for sure.
Okay.
If I wouldn't play 3E, I guess if I could play it again if I had to, but it's not something I would do by preference, and I certainly wouldn't want to design in 3E or any of the successor engines for that, because that was horrific. Converting Rob's Moz 4 was a nightmare with all those feats and skills and conditional bonuses. And my understanding is that 5e simplifies that some, but I think from what I've heard, it's still very much grounded in that 3e design structure.
Yeah,
from a game design point of view.
Well, it's hey, there's speaking of 2E creation, there's Mike Wilson, who is the coder for Fantasy Grounds 2E. Celestian, thanks, Mike, for that, picking that up. I appreciate that resub there. And now I'm hardly awaiting the Fantasy Grounds Unity to come out in December. I jumped up on that Kickstarter for that, definitely, just because I know we'll utilize it somewhat a little bit here and there. So Alan, that's cool. Do you use do you go up to Unearthed Arcana? Do you use double specialization for fighters?
No, I don't have any specialization.
None at all. No single, nothing.
Not anymore.
Wow.
I used to use it. No, got rid of it.
How about Cavaliers?
Subclass of fighter.
It's a subclass of fighter. Okay.
Yeah. So like I use the Cavalier from Unearthed Arcana is not that different from the way Gary published it in Dragon 72.
We use Dragon 72. That's what we use. Yeah.
But the Barbarian, I use all the stuff from the Dragon magazine's issues instead of the stuff that's in Unearthed Arcana, because I don't like what they did with it in Unearthed Arcana.
Do you use the Barbarian Cleric out of Dragon?
I don't remember that one.
Okay.
No.
Okay. All right.
I do.
I know you do. Yes, there's a Tim. Try and find, if you have that around. Try and find the article reference on that.
I was reading it today. It was in Dragon 109.
Okay, Dragon 109. There you go. The Barbarian Cleric.
I was reading it today. One of my NPCs in my college group was Powhatan Mirgawa.
Yes, it's not a bad throw-in for occasion. It's one of I don't have it as a class, but I have it as a throw-in. Let's talk about
I loved all those classes in Dragon and stuff like that. Like Leonard's Deathmaster in 76.
Yeah.
I didn't think was powerful enough.
I know. So you made the Necromancer.
So I made my Necromancer out of that. Yeah.
So Alan came over one night with Christoph and his fiance and Mike and who's on Zudrak and his son at my house, and checked out the game room. And I see Alan's Necromancer. He brings it out. And I'm like, I have a Necromancer too. And it's funny how we both made Necromancers, and they're similar, but it's just like we both. That's, I think, an area where was lacking in 1E, 2E.
And they did a whole book on necromancers in 2E. I have a copy of that somewhere.
The complete book of
Because
necromancy.
I don't know if it's really that good or not. I mean,
It's okay, but like the high level powers, we kind of utilize a little bit just to change it up a little bit. Explain what you did so that someone can say, "Hey, this is what I would do to create a class." So you took the Deathmaster, and what did you do from that point?
well, like, so for the Deathmaster, I mined it for a lot of the powers and capabilities, but I wanted it to be more grounded in the undead themselves. So I gave the different level powers of the class as they would level up. They would get various undead immunities based on, getting up higher in level. They'd be immune to paralysis, they'd be
Draining.
immune to aging, things
Cool.
like that, immune to energy drain eventually. And then they could also inflict some of those capabilities over time too. So I did that, and that was kind of grounded in the Deathmaster class, if I remember some of that. And then I wanted to have a much broader, I created a whole bunch of spells for it because I didn't feel like the spells that were available to your standard cleric and magic user were undead enough either.
They weren't. I agree.
And
I agree.
so I created a bunch of spells, and then I also pulled in some spells from like Polyhedron. John Pickens wrote an article in there about the Magic Jar School, which is Dominion in the Player's Handbook.
Right.
And so I pulled in that stuff as possession-based magic for them. And then in Ed Greenwood's Lords of Darkness book, which was kind of a
3.5, wasn't it? In between.
well, this is the 1E version of it.
Okay,
but
the 1E version. Okay.
In that one, it was sort of like a book of lairs with mostly lame undead encounters in it. But at the back of the book, he had written a bunch of necromantic type spells. So I took some of those and modified them further. My old DM in college, Allan Rook at Penn State, he had this awesome spell his evil clerics and magic users used called Fingers of Leprosy. So they would shoot these beams of like emperor-like lightning out of their fingers, and it would do like a die 6 damage a level, basically like a fireball or lightning bolt, but they would flay the skin off your bones as it rotted off of you. So I gave that to them.
And that's what you have to do in order to create a necromancer class, because
they've got to be heinous.
It has to be, and the levels, the spells, there's not enough spells. So, for example, in my version, here's the first 5 spell levels. If you look at all the book references, there's 22 different book references. Creating that spell book, homegrown, Eldritch Sorcery, Complete Book of Necromancers. It goes on and on and on. Complete Wizard's Handbook. I mean, pages from the mages. I'm pulling from like every single.
Yeah, they were gold.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's like 1 or 2 gems in each of those books.
Yeah.
So, like I was saying to anyone who's watching, and I think Allan will verify this, is that if you want to create something custom, the information's out there, but you gotta like take your time and just build it up. I mean, you don't have to have a complete spell list. You can have like a spell list of 10 spells per each level when you start, and then as you see stuff, you pull it in. It grows and grows. It never ends, really. It's like a living, breathing thing. Because I've added a couple spells probably about a year ago to the, let's see, like one like Blood Purge, Eldritch Sorcery, page 40, and that's that's one of those Necromancer game books. And you just keep on adding to it, and that's how you create a custom class, and it sounds like you did the same thing,
And I designed the whole, level progression for them because I knew they were stupidly powerful.
Right.
So they're like, it's like 8,000 experience points to get the second level or something crazy like that for it. And, I wanted them to be able to, kind of raise hordes of undead and stuff. So they're one of their 7th level spells, lets them raise an entire cemetery. And it's got like, some little ritual magic stuff as part of the description. So in that one, I said, they started introducing, Leonard, in fact, wrote these. In Dragon 58, he started writing some of those spells that later appeared in
the Deathmaster.
Unearthed Arcana, but like those ceremony spells and things like
Rest
that.
Eternal.
Yeah, and you could start to use these spells as part of bigger rituals. So I did that a little bit with the class too.
I didn't realize that it was Leonard who wrote those.
Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that.
That was my first issue. So
wow.
It had a Holmes story in it in the bag, and then it had Leonard's Leonard's
remember that.
story, Leonard's articles, and it had these little spellminder chits you could use as a prop for keeping track of your memorized spells when you cast them and stuff.
We're close because I think the first one I ever got was the monk on the front of 53. I think that was.
I
Okay.
remember the in the bag story.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
where it was a bag of holding that ended up in a different, like it was like more like a dimensional door to a different place, right?
That's right. Yeah, the thief pulls himself into the bag of holding, and he ends up landing in a net. And then there's these guys who run a dungeon in there, and they basically steal the loot that people drop in there and put
Right.
fake things back in there, so you get crap back out of it instead of what you put in. It was a great story.
Good time.
And it's like we are all a compilation of all those stories, which is
Oh,
cool, you know, because you just told me something I didn't know about Leonard, and like you know, it's just like wow, it's just, and that's the great thing I love about D&D is that it's just like it's accumulative. You're never done with the game, tweaking it and making it your own, and that's what I think a lot of people. I don't know if 5e doesn't. 5e is great for playing, but it doesn't feel that way. I mean, I'm not bashing it, Naz. I'm not bashing 5e. Okay, so don't get upset. I'm just saying that 1e, 2e for me feels that way. Now, you know, just because of.
Like, I think, you know, there's so much stuff there that the rules really encourage you to go through them and figure out what works for your game and what doesn't, because there's an awful lot of it that's presented as options. And then, you know, make that work for you and your players. But then, you know, there's all these little bits and pieces of rules and stuff that even now, you know, we'll rediscover.
Exactly.
I was reading through stuff the other day, chit-chatting with Bill Sylvie about stuff, and I saw you know, if you're in a civilized space in the wilderness, 25% of your random encounters are with a patrol, and I'd completely forgotten that. You know,
all sorts of little stuff. Yeah, definitely. And there's like just the age tables and this. I mean, come on, is there anything cooler? You know, this book. There's little tidbits all throughout this book that like no one ever remembers. You know, that the potion miscibility table. You know, it's
always a pleasure when I get to roll on that.
Because it came up at Gen Con that like someone had taken a potion. I'm playing with the Greyhawk Channel people, and Taco was there. Taco was playing Decks of Misunderstood, and someone took a potion of thievery, and then was about to take a potion of invisibility right afterward. And then Geek Dice, Sean said, "Don't do that. You're gonna have to roll on the potion invisibility table." And none of them understood what what he knew, because you know he was kind of an old school player. But that's like the cool thing, and that's what I'm getting at. I'm getting at Duff. I'm getting at Naz. I'm getting at Taco Nixel. Please, that's what I'm getting at. I'm not getting at a bashing 5e. That's what I'm trying to say.
Did he drink it?
Yeah.
She did not, because she's like, oh, and I said, well, one of the effects you could explode. So, and she didn't do it then.
Chance isn't
Very
that
light,
high.
I
Roll
know,
the dice.
I kind of scared her.
Yep.
But we have a house rule on that, Alan, and that is healing potions, or if you have a potion of invisibility on, you can take a healing potion. It can't mix positively or negatively. It's too much to keep track. Once again, a tracking thing in the game. I can't keep track of everything. So that was like a little house rule that healing potions, you can't like have a permanent healing potion, but it's not going to be a negative or positive effect.
Unless you drink them exactly at the same time.
No, Tim, that's your no.
Yeah, because
No.
healing could be permanent, and then you just keep regenerating.
Yeah, no. Yeah, then you explode when you double your hit points, right? So,
Yeah, you could.
So, Alan, guys, ask some questions in the audience here. I know we got some stuff ever since Tim shot Carlos down. We haven't had many questions out there, but
That is not my fault.
yes. So, Alan, what do you think about this? I have taken. We took feats, some like 25 to 30 feats, and we backed them into the weapon proficiency system, and it gave everyone an extra proficiency. Like fighters get them now. They start with 4, 3, 5, 7, 9 instead of 4, 7, 10, for example. And just like because we wanted to add some other combat effects like blind fighting, some of the things that 1E is missing. You know, because we love two-fisted fighting, and really we thought that should be an actual weapon proficiency slot to take that. That's kind of where the whole thing started. Roger Moore's two-fisted fighting article.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, so do you do anything like that, or are you just?
I have in the past and sometimes.
Okay.
So we used non-weapon proficiencies at various points.
Okay.
I think they were introduced with maybe Dungeoneer Survival Guide.
Yeah, Tim's big on that too. Yeah.
and some of those were kind of the same idea in some ways. I think it was a neat idea and system. In my my DM's games in college, Allan Rook, he had sort of a set of skill points he developed based on the character's intelligence. It was pure intelligence stuff, and those would be ways you could like learn to do stuff like alchemy or poison manufacture or you know, whatever you needed to do for your character. So I think there's, you know, AD&D has a lot of flexibility where you can build in those kinds of systems and make them rationalizedly fit in a rationalized way with the rest of how you run the games. I think that's all reasonable. What I found to be difficult about the 3E stuff was building out NPCs with, I don't want to have to use an Excel based chart generator thing to write up NPCs and stat them out. So that's what really kind of got me on that stuff, is that, you know, if you can't, you know, calculate the to hit bonuses due to synergies and whatever with this, that, and the other thing, I lost interest.
It gets, your time is precious, and you should be able to write a monster, a basic one like an orc, or a brigand in one line on your sheet of paper. And if it's going to 5 or 6 lines, like it ended up at 4th, which I never played, but you saw modules published in it, there's something going on there. And I agree with that 100%, because you need to be, you know, because we have all seen our pieces of paper, and you have 6, 6, 6, 6, 6 all the way across of all the orcs, right? Or, you know, kobolds or whatever it may be. And you really you want to keep it as concise as possible when the storyline is more important than the details on a single orc. I agree 100% with that.
Yeah, and like even including just regular AD&D stat blocks, you know, that eats up a fair amount of space. It's like 2 or 3 lines, you know, in a module.
Right.
Paul Sturbrink and I have had discussions about this in the past. He's like, you know, I don't want anything to. I want to use my monster manual with the module, and I don't want extra text that's in the monster manual. I want the hit points of the monster, and I want anything that's different about the monster. You know, if it's Nozdra and he hits as a fire giant and he gets +2 to hit and +6 on damage, I want to know that, and I want to know his armor class if it's different than the standard in the book. And after that, I don't care. Just, you know, a lot of the entries in you know, G1 back when it was published as a mono module, it's like, you know, 4 bugbears, hit points 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that's it.
Right.
I like to have a reference card where it has you know, all the details off the side, and then in the area you're dealing with, you just got the hit points.
You grew up from your uncle and your father who used their index card guys. So they got magic on them, an index card, and there's a little word quirk at the bottom. Always. I remember that when I was a kid. I was like, what is this? Oh, well, you never know.
There's a quirk with it. Oh.
You never know what'll happen. That magic item may be cursed. I don't know. It's just
might have halitosis.
Yeah, exactly. So so they're the index card genre, which is cool. Absolutely. Yeah. So Anna, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm amazed how accurate you do things. But I haven't had the burden of having to write my own modules or let anyone else play them or see them. So I simply, before I have an idea in an area what kind of monsters and hoodlums were running around, so I made a few templates, meaning here's the template orc, and if there are orcs in the area, or like 3-4 versions, and then I just altered them on the fly, meaning, oh, this big beefier, give him some more hit points and beef up the armor class a couple of ones. I don't, if that makes sense with the armor, I don't care, and as long as the players believe it, and I have to simply jot down what I came up with at the moment, spur of the moment. And that's why I love to run like 3.5 and Pathfinder rules, because I don't have to do it. Only the really advanced, like the named NPCs, the master villains, I can sit and spend an hour going through everything there, make sure it makes sense and it's all accurate. All the minions and the barkeeps and the highway robbers and city guards, it's all just made up.
Just hand wave that.
Yeah.
Sometimes orcs are successful and they have plate mail.
Exactly, and whatever, and they might just have an old rusty chainmail, but they have one hell of an armor class, and anyway, they're difficult to beat, so to speak. And that way, you can tweak it a little bit, so you make it cinematic, meaning if the players need more resistance, that bugger is damn hard to kill, and so on. So you can kind of tweak it a little bit to suit the situation too, and suit the kind of what the story and the mood around the table and stuff. If they simply murder through whatever comes, then some dam will come and nail them at the end, so to speak, or and be tough. So it's a little bit that way. I tweak it constantly. It's very little kind of hardwired. And now I'm running my games digitally, which means that I can have stat block by stat block available. I don't have to sift through, and it's just a link. So if I want to know what a standard fire giant, I just click fire giant, and voila, I got the stat block. So that way I never have to look into books. I never have to wait 2 minutes while I'm finding this. So that also made it a lot easier. I can just copy, and now there's like the whole and there are whole books of NPCs, like
notes
you
written
have
all
1,000
over.
1,000 NPCs of every level, and you can just copy and tweak them a little bit.
Yeah, my PDF of the player's handbook doesn't have all my hand annotations in the equipment list for things that are added. You know?
Yep. But when you write a module, it needs to make sense, because it will be scrutinized during planning phase and all that. So that's why I can probably never write a module and get away with it.
Oh, don't! I bet you could write a good module. You could write a good module.
Yeah, the problem is I'm probably too much of a perfectionist. Then I have to sit down and everything needs to make sense. It's like my maps. I'm going into details until it's crazy.
Let me tell you, Anna, I thought the same thing going into Gen Con. Because if Carlos, you're still on there. I mean, I was worried about my part for Carlos's half, and it turns out when we talked last, on our show the week before, Carlos said he was worried about my part, and it's just like they fit in perfectly, and it it turns symbiotic. I think we all. I mean, if you know what you're doing and you have it's like, I think you'd be able to write a nice
it's
cool
like Jay,
module.
when I watch you run your games and you sift around a little bit of paper, it looks like you have everything written down, every little armor class and hit points, and you have perfect order. You like the most perfect bureaucrat and taxman. They always have the paper like it's just here, and I'm going to inform you. And it's like
I imagine Allan's the same way. I imagine Allan is exactly the same way with notes.
I'm sure Allan has it's nailed down to a T, that just like it's here, and you have every little stat. Yeah.
Depends on how much time I've had before a game to prep. I've been at one of the early Gary cons, and I was finishing rolling up stuff the night that we arrived for the next day's game. Some in the past as well. So it goes the whole gamut.
Absolutely, and then improvisation is a huge, a trait to have too, because things go off the go crazy a lot, and you just need to be prepared for it. And I think, it's a learned thing. Which DMing for so long, you really it's come second nature. Hey, you mentioned Gary Con. I wanted to ask you this. You have down convention tourneys. Where Gary Con and North Texas Con are your two big ones for the year, Allan, that you go to?
Okay. Yeah, I don't go to Gen Con anymore. It's just too big.
Okay.
The last time I was there was in 2007, which I think was the first or second year it was in Indianapolis. Or maybe 2004 was the first year, I guess. I don't remember.
Definitely
anyway,
going.
It was huge.
2020 is an absolute definite. You'll be at Gary Con.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's on the books.
What about the North Texas? Tell us what's special about that, because a lot of people said it's a really good convention.
Yeah. So both Gary Con and North Texas started in 2009. In the wake of Gary's passing, really. And North Texas still has it's a much smaller convention than Gary Con. So I think Gary Con official attendance last year was like close to 3,000 people, maybe.
Yeah, I think it sounds very plausible. Yeah.
And North Texas is still in the kind of 450 people range. So you have it's a much smaller feel. It's kind of like what Gary Con, 3 or 4 kind of felt like. But they're both very old school focused. You can play lots of old school games and stuff there, the whole time. But North Texas doesn't have the I guess big draw in of 5e players. They run some 5e games there, but not a whole ton. They don't do any Pathfinder really there again, except sometimes when special guests run stuff. So special guests can run anything they want. And if you're one of the people who's been attending every convention every year there, you can also run anything you want. I think.
Is it 4 days?
They're both 4-day conventions. Yeah.
Okay.
So the North Texas Con is in Dallas, Fort Worth every year. And then Gary Con's up in Lake Geneva, of course.
Are there any others that you attend as you would recommend that are like diamonds in the rough, or that like you seen a good mix of crowd, or just?
I mean, I've attended a bunch of cons back in the day, up and down the East Coast. They had a bunch regionally there as a kid and stuff, but Origins has still got a pretty strong old school feel.
Okay.
And it's still smaller, significantly smaller than Gen Con, but it's quite a bit bigger now than it used to be. I wouldn't say it's like maybe 30,000 people or so.
Wow.
But they've been at a permanent location, and I always forget which city it's in Ohio now, for like at least 15 years or something like that. And that's really helped them grow the convention there. So that's good. I've been out to DundraCon and KublaCon when I lived in the Bay Area, and back a couple times when I've been back around the same time for work. So those are good old school cons. I've heard good things about Genghis Con in Denver. That's been going forever.
Okay.
And then there's some other cons up in the Boston and Connecticut areas that I've heard about. MassCon, which I think isn't called MassCon anymore. It's called something. TotalCon maybe is maybe the new MassCon. I don't. But that's supposed to be really good. There's an OSR Con up in that area. And then there's one of the guys is from some of the old school groups on Facebook and such, is doing an old school convention in Central Florida around Orlando as part of a different convention there, and I'm completely blanking on the name of it.
Okay.
Let's see if I can find it real quick. But there's definitely a lot more interest, I think, in old school stuff these days than there certainly was in the 90s or even early 2000s.
Well, the bizarre.
I think you'll be able to find it.
Well, that's good. That's great to hear. But I guess it's generational thing, but not on Twitch. It's mostly. I mean, there's Rob 2E. There's Celestian, myself, a couple other. It's 99% 5e, and maybe some Pathfinder thrown in here and there, but it is all. It's a 5e world. I think it's just a generational thing.
Yeah, but the whole hobby is kind of lifted, so it's a much bigger pond now. That means that even if you're small, you're bigger. Even if you're just a percentage, that means that you can double in size. So it's.
But I have a feeling that more as people get comfortable with technology, that they'll start maybe coming out on it. So, Allan, you love still writing person, pen and paper games, correct? That's the way you play. And, and I know if this is a subject you don't want to touch, that's okay. But you were talking about your son DMing now, and you're proud of what he's doing. You want to talk about that a little bit? I mean, I think it's it's fantastic. Sure. Okay, cool. Well, you guys hear this? This is great. Yeah.
So my son Henry just started me in his Greyhawk campaign yesterday. So these are our notes. And here, I can't. There we go. Note.
That's awesome.
And I posted a little bit about it on Facebook, but he was DMing me. So he's created a bad guy who dates back to we're playing in 576 common year, so right out of the box and the folio. But he's got a bad guy who he created who's named Broadnell Nargosh IV, who is the Arch Baron of Ilgelgaron, and it's in Greyhawk, up in the wastes area at the north center part of the map. Between the cold marshes and above the Fell Reeve Forest and the Rovers of the Barrens. So this guy's been kicking around Highlander style since 315 CY or something like that. And we just found out that we may have he's a human, and we may have just stumbled into his one of his old offices in this mine or something, and some old letters, and we stole his stuff. So
so
Henry
awesome.
was
Is every good adventure.
Henry's my 11-year-old, and
He's 11, and he came up with all this. This is fantastic.
yeah. So
Did you tell him there
he
could be
improv
only
the entire cave system map for the. He'd drawn a regular dungeon map, and we went into the cave areas instead of where the dungeon was, I guess, or something, and he improv that whole thing and all these encounters and stuff. So
That is
Wow.
so fantastic. That like it must make you feel so good inside. That like wow, he came up with this at 11, and you know it took me till 18 to start doing stuff. You know, I would be just that's wonderful. That's so
yeah, it's fun, and you know, both of my kids have played from when they were little and
Right.
stuff. But he's really taken to it, and he attended North Texas and Gary Con this year, and he attended North Texas last year, and he ran games for kids and people at the conventions at all those.
Wow. Yep.
So
And
it's
is he going to
it's off the
GaryCon
old
this
block.
year?
Yeah, he'll be at GaryCon.
That's
Well,
awesome.
I don't know if
Depends
he'll
on-
be at GaryCon because it's not over our spring break this year.
Oh, okay.
Last year it was. I don't know if he'll be able to go this year or not, but he'll go to North Texas, I'm sure.
Excellent. That is that's such a great story. And so I mean, he's doing 1E, right? He's
Oh, yeah.
DMing 1E. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you hopeful for, like for the future overall of Greyhawk? You know, is there anything you'd like to? I know everyone wants to see it opened up to DM's Guild, of course, but what do you? I mean, you know, I think that in this last year, with you know, with everyone now is contributing together as almost like a team, that it's really come a long way. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're sort of in a old school. I don't know if golden age is really the right word, but we've got so much stuff being produced by people that's good, fun material. You know, both for Greyhawk as well as for old school gaming in general. You know, I love the continued interest in the Orth Journal and the Greyhawk fandom out there. You know, with the you know, I guess Google Plus kind of imploding and all that stuff. There's a little bit less. You know, the communities are reforming and things
It's
like
a Discord.
that.
It's all Discord now. Yeah. Yeah.
But it seems to me like there's a lot more interest in the setting and in it kind of old school gaming in general than there was, you know, a long time ago. So I think that's great. You know, when we were going to sort of the pre-school year kickoff stuff with our kids last week, my son's math teacher plays 5e and he's new to gaming. So he's started gaming in the last year or so. He went to Gen Con apparently.
Oh, cool.
So we were chit-chatting about stuff. So I mean, there's a lot of interest in the game in general, and I think that's great. And some of that, but there doesn't seem to be as much sort of, you know, stigma to old school gaming, and there seems to be a lot more interest in Greyhawk as a setting. So I'm hopeful we'll continue to see it come together, and I would still love to see, you know, the Castle Greyhawk of Gary Gygax and Rob Kuntz make it to print. You know, I'm not going to hold my breath, but I would still, you know, love to see that happen.
It is. I'm thinking outside the box here. Maybe even, hey, Mike, even put it in Fantasy Grounds. Mike, because Mike Wilson's done Temple of Elemental Evil in Fantasy Grounds 2E. So I mean that's huge for in itself, and that actually gives me hope that they allowed 2E to be licensed through that, and I was shocked. And apparently, you know, there's a couple of individuals, including, you know, Mike worked real hard on, a lot of other people, that there was a little opening there.
I had talked with WotC licensing about licensing Greyhawk content back in the early 2000s before you know, Gary and Rob were really doing much on the Castle Zagig front and such. And WotC was not licensing Greyhawk. It was part of the core rules and everything at the time. So, you know, they've obviously done the Saltmarsh book. They've kind of had a couple nods to Greyhawk with the Mordenkainen book for the Tome of Foes and stuff. So I'm hoping that maybe they'll be open to something like that eventually.
I would love to see
the opportunity to bring some of this stuff back and, you know, create new material using the real Greyhawk IP. That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have like Anna has the map for Greyhawk, and there's been a lot of, Anna's been adding a lot of content to it. Do you have a special place or special something that is in your campaign that you're like, wow, in this location, there's nothing there? Like, kind of like what Mike Bridges did for All. I was just curious if you said, oh, wow, there's something missing that I could.
Yeah, because I've added other people's content to
exactly,
maps. Much more.
exactly. So
I've only added a couple of tiny bits. So meaning most other big fan creators have way more content on the map than I do. So I added the terrain. That's my big thing. So
an homage even to an old module that's not anywhere. For example, Allan, Allan and I were talking the other day, and this references Greyhawk. There's no location specific in here. So we talked about where I put it in the Sus Forest, and
so
now
I was thinking we should put the Temple of Erythnol in the Sus Forest and put it. So I was going to be the last location added in the revision 1 of the 2019 edition. So it will go in there. So there will be a Temple of Erythnol in the Sus Forest. So yeah,
awesome.
Yep.
Sound. There you go. I just knocked my sound out there. So, Allan, is there anything that like you have a castle or keep or a stronghold?
Cool.
Or I was just curious, because I know you have a rich campaign.
Yeah. So I don't know that I've created like Henry created this new archbarony out of whole cloth. So I haven't particularly done anything like that inside the Flen S, but I have spent some time building out some of the Mar Castle environs more. So I had this monastery to Wee Joss in there that I like. And then I've used the DMG monastery. That was part of my sequel to T1 before Temple of Elemental Evil ever got published. I used that along with another adventure that I'd done to build out the elemental evil forces.
That was such a drag when we were younger, wasn't it? You had Village of Hamlet, and you're like, what do I do now? I mean, really? I was like, oh.
Dragon magazine. It's like, where is my Temple of Elemental Evil?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was mentioned and hinted at and named and stuff for I don't know how long before. Yeah,
it's got to be 6 years, 7 years.
Yeah, it was more than that.
Yeah, it was a long time, and we didn't play till '86. So I mean, we didn't start a campaign on it until '86.
The earliest was Hamlet, and I think he was in high school when the.
Tim, I think it was like 80. Did it come out 85? I think it came out 84, 85.
That sounds right. 85.
Yeah.
And so it had been
like Hamlet was 79.
Yeah, it was 6 years at least, and it was a drag. Yeah. All right. So Will says it's 5. So
it's more than that. I have to. Yeah. And if it's not, it's more than that in emotional years.
Yeah, it was.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, that's cool, Allan. I just because I know what Anna is doing now. I think is really, kind of. I don't want to say on the. It's on the like what Living Greyhawk did made a lot of changes to the map, but I mean now Anna's looking for places that are open and really have no content. Like the County of Ulick has nothing, or what you said. Did the Rovers have nothing? You added some Rover stuff, correct, Anna? Rovers.
Oh yeah, well, I took in the Living Greyhawk campaign. There was a lot of heraldry, and they named a lot of the clans from the Rovers and named them in Living Greyhawk. So I added that material to the map. So when there is content from someone that either it was Living Greyhawk or some and some people have sent me stuff that they wrote stuff originally and then it was kind of on the cutting room floor or it wasn't published. So I added that to the map too. And then I always take Mike Bridges' example of Allan. Simply he took an area that had shown almost no love. That was like 2 paragraphs in the books about Allan, and he made it into a 20-sided module basically, or source book. So I took all that material and put it on the map. So that's what I've been doing, that if people have written things that fill in the blanks and it's accepted by the Greyhawk community, then I put it in there. And a lot of people, when they ask me, say, oh, how do I get stuff on your maps? And I simply say, well, write something and publish it and make sure that the Greyhawk community likes it, then it goes on my map. So it's not me primarily. You have to bribe me too, but you have to bribe the Greyhawk community.
We're not
first.
beyond
Yeah.
bribing you, Anna. Trust
Exactly.
me. No.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Yeah. I get bribed every month to do that. So yeah, thanks to my patrons. So yeah.
Anna, do you I don't remember offhand, but do you have like the different entry points to the fading lands and the various demiplanes and stuff on the map at all?
No, I have a few. I have the let's see, up in the north of Seif, there is a hang on a second, I need to get the
She
map
got
up here. Yeah.
What's that big
So
arch?
but most
thing?
of these areas I've avoid. If the areas that move around and they're said to be moving around, I skip them, so to speak. But if they have a kind of a known location, even if they come and go, but if they move around and so on, then I've skipped them.
Okay.
So yeah. So
That makes
but
sense.
I put
I
a
keep
few.
looking off to the left because that's where my darling.
It's all right. It's all
Gotcha.
good.
Yep. Yep.
It's all good.
Yep.
Hey, I keep on looking down because I have Twitch on my laptop now, so I'm not crashing my machine anymore.
Yep.
So
and I can see that I'm mirror on the stream, and it's so funny because Allan and Tim, you are not.
oh, really? Oh, that's
exactly,
on your
and I'm
end.
not.
That's
So there's something wrong with my camera.
yeah,
Because
you
when it
have it
goes
set to mirror. You got to set it to unmirror. You got to set it to actual. See, there's a button, and you just got to right click
Okay,
on.
hang on a
zoom.
second. Yeah, I need
No
to
problem.
go in there. But it's kind of interesting because when I see all of them in Zoom, everything is right, and then when I see it in Twitch, it's not. So yeah.
Here's a question for you, Allan. I know we're getting near the end here. When someone, for you, what do you want people to remember? Like what your accomplishments have done. What do you think is your biggest contribution to Greyhawk D&D? I'm not doing a post-mortem here. I'm just saying,
If I was dead tomorrow, what would I want someone to remember me for?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, what are you most proud of? What you've done in your career, which goes 40 years, right? Is it Castle Greyhawk?
In terms of Greyhawk stuff, I mean, I really think the work that's been done in the community as a whole, and I've participated in that and helped kind of foster that, but the work with sharing content on Grey Talk turned eventually into Cannon Fire coming around, and a bunch of people worked on getting that up off the ground. And then that there was a network of Greyhawk web ring sites with Malden was organizing.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
They're all gone but his. That's the sad
not all
thing.
of them. Mine's still there.
Oh, you yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's others too. But there's I think as a whole, the fan community has really supported Greyhawk through all the hard times. So just part of that and meeting everybody and then getting to play games together in person at conventions and stuff. That's a blast. That's the best.
Very well said. Absolutely. Celestian, Mike Wilson asked a question here. I know you touched on this a little bit. I think it's an important one though. Have you tried to talk to WotC to write adventures for AD&D? I've been wanting to joke around and see if it could be done for Fantasy Grounds. I'm a huge fan of the Advanced Adventures Osric and would love to see them in AD&D format.
I haven't talked to them about licensing a rule set. So when I was talking to them, it was really explicitly around Greyhawk IP.
Okay.
So I didn't even know that 2E was licensed as a rule set for Fantasy Grounds. You mentioned it in the show tonight. So if they're open to that for 2E, I don't see why they wouldn't be open to it for 1E. I mean, that makes perfect sense to me.
Right. Okay.
So, but I haven't. Let's see. It's probably been about 3 or 4 years since I've last talked to the licensing people.
Who is? Yeah, you have a contact there still at this time. I mean,
I do. I don't know if she's still the right person, but I could certainly check.
Excellent.
Let somebody know if they needed a contact.
Yeah. Fantastic. I mean, that's a start, right? You don't get anywhere in life without asking. If you don't ask, you don't get an answer. So,
no, it's not a bad thing. Came up with a big enough money proposal, they would make it work for you.
Yeah.
If you've got a couple $1 million lying around and you want to do a really gigantic 1E revival, I'm sure with the right amount of money you can convince Wizards to do it. I mean,
someone needs to hit the lottery.
Yeah.
Someone would need to hit the lottery on that, absolutely.
Yeah.
So why don't we get to what everyone's we're got about like 10 minutes. We may go a minute or two over, Alan, if that's okay. But
Oh, yeah.
just wanted to what's everyone got going? We'll go around the table. Let's start with Tim. Tim, what do you got going on, man? We as far as, well, we know what's coming in October.
October, I have my second Saturday Night Live special. Saturday Night Live special.
Yeah, it's
No,
Saturday night special.
Saturday Night special. It is actually, besides dealing with family when I'm at work and all that, it's the only thing that I really find entertainment in, is considering all the next steps that's going to happen next time we play. So.
Oh man, I'm so scared. I am.
And
so,
I've also revamped the critical table, so now we're at beta 1.2.
Alan, Tim took the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay crits.
I took the crits from a website, the Winds of Chaos. There's guys there that were actually medical doctors and came up with criticals for piercing weapons, edged, blunt, arrows and bolts, bullets from early firearms, plus fire and energy and shrapnel, and
Nice.
monsters' claws, and unarmed, and treated them like medical doctors. Like, this is a critical. So they're horrific.
That sounds awesome.
Oh, I love them.
Send me the
So-
link. Because I've been looking at Warhammer and trying to consider it.
Yeah, send Alan put that link in the if you have that Winds of Fury, is it? Winds of Fury.
Chaos.
Put it in the link, because I'm assuming that stuff is, the base tables are still up somewhere.
Yeah, it's a website. It's a homegrown version, because the standard ones are boring.
Yeah,
If you get a chance, Tim, put it up in the chat. Okay, a link for that. Okay.
that's great.
Yeah. So Tim is right now. The tentative date is Saturday night, October 26th. We'll do our next Saturday night special with Tim DMing as Sea State of the Invincible Overlord tabletop style, just like we did the last time, and it was a huge success. Everyone loves Tim DMing because he's crazy, and you get the idea. So I can't wait for it. I get to play Dervilia and Kixano again, so it'll be the second time in 25 years I played those characters. So yeah, absolutely. So Anna, what's going on?
Well, the first thing is that I'm ramping up my Patreon work, so I have about a couple of more weeks with wrapping up the all the commissions, and then I'm basically free for the rest of the year to work on Greyhawk. So there's a whole bunch of stuff I'm ramping up. So the first will be an updated version of my 598 map with the Salt Marsh area included, and a bunch of more heraldry and stuff like that. It's probably about 20 or 30 new things that are included. And then will be the next that I've already started a few weeks ago is the 576 map. That will be the next couple of months, will be the big thing that I will working on. And I'm also going to see if I can get the last details from Lendla Kafka, because the Lendor Isles are kind of halfway through, so they are definitely going to be wrapped up this fall, and that will be the first of a new series of Greyhawk maps with about 100 feet per pixel and full 3D. They will be asymmetric, top down, and stuff like that. So there will be whole new mapping technique, so to speak, with a whole new quality. So that will be cinematic, and we can do landscape photography, and the sky is the limit when it comes to that. So that's the first test area for that, and then it's basically up to my patrons to what I should do after that. But what I want to do that running is the My Planet Earth or whatever you call it, the whole planet project, because in order to place the Flanies and all its constituents parts in the proper space, I need to know where on the planet they are. So this fall I will come up with a couple of layout suggestions and versions of it, and throw it out to the community to debate and throw rotten eggs or praise, whatever they want at me. So in a few months I can kind of dial into what the community think is the best version of it, and that will be the base for placing my stuff in the future. So because there's like 3 or 4 or 5 different versions of what the planet looks like, the continental layout, so to speak. So I want to kind of make a best of version that the community as a whole can at least tolerate and hopefully embrace. And that way I can base the future mapping on putting things there in the right spot. So that was something that I want to nail down. So those 3 projects for sure this fall. And then I have a bunch of other cool things that I want to dig into, and which order will be up to my patrons, but there's a whole bunch of new cool 3D mapping tools and other tools coming out that I've been starting to use. So the current latest maps that I've done for Cobalt Press and others are based on 10-year-old technology. Now I'm coming in with cutting edge technology, and it's super, super, super cool. The sky is really the limit. So it's going to show. So I have things that I want to dig into. One of them is Rift Canyon. It's just begging to be mapped, so to speak. So Rift Canyon in
cool.
3D. It's high on the what I want to do. And Ratik was going to be the first area on the mainland, so to speak, that I will dig into. So I might be able to start digging into that this fall too. But it will definitely be out next year. And then, so for next year, I hope to do about 4 projects. That's the idea. So Ratik was going to be one of them, and then it will hope maybe there will be things like Rift Canyon. Another one of my favorite is the Howling Hills. I cannot just love the Howling Hills up there. It's these places out in nowhere with so many cool locations, and just the name alone, it's kind of super, super cool. And then I have kind of other interesting things that I'm going to throw at my patrons to decide, because it will up to them to pick the priority. So we have to pick at least 2 areas that going to get the new full treatment, so to speak. And I also have one thing that I haven't talked to in public yet, but it's time to say it. It's I'm going to for D&D in a castle next year in England, where they're going to have a number of DMs running games for some awesome gamers in a castle in England in September next year. And I will have one of the DM spots for a week in September. So I'm going to do a special thing for that, and that will be something that I will receive some very special treatment. So there will be some special maps for that. I picked the area, not going to tell anyone until there will be a number of people that I have to test run, so to speak, and I will pick that from my top patrons. I will pick the ones that I can test run it, so to speak, and then hopefully right after it's run in England, my patrons will get those maps and stuff, and some of the other cool stuff. So that is something I've been writing. I worked on scenarios and stuff for the past 3 months, and it's starting to take shape a little bit. So we'll see. I have a couple of different ones, but it's going to be an iconic location, and it's going to be a kind of iconic scenario, and it's going to be full-blown battle maps, 50 miles in every direction.
Oh my gosh!
So we're going to do an overland, like a dungeon crawl, so to speak.
Nice.
It's going to be some super cool. So I'm going to see if we can have some classical things like dragon battles and big formations. We're going to have overland chases and some other stuff built into the campaign. So that will be something special that will receive some very special treatment. And of course that will be available to everybody afterwards. But first to the players in England, and then to my patrons after that, and then they will release to everybody. Mm-hmm.
That's so fantastic.
Yeah, so that's what's on the horizon. But I'm writing. I have a big blog post that's going on my Patreon detailing a lot of this, way more that's coming today or tomorrow.
Fantastic.
Yep.
And of course, we'll be seeing you in December.
Yes,
Philly.
I will go. Yeah, I will go to Game Hall Con, and I will be at PAX.
Awesome.
Yep.
Allan, so what do you want to say about in closing plug? I'd love to hear some general thoughts or whatever you want to say. The floor is yours.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy you came. This is great.
It was great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate the opportunity, and it was fun to chit chat with everybody and kind of see folks online.
Definitely, and we usually have I've done 3 so far, a DM's roundtable discussion where we take 5 to 6 dungeon masters and we just bring up topics. to help each other with play or situational issues or whatever. And so maybe you could come back for that when the next one I have. They'll
Sure.
open invitation for that. Anna's participated, Tim's participated, Will's participated. I know James Duffy wants to participate, and Frank from Nightheart Gaming. We got a whole bunch of people who want to participate in those. So I'd love to have you back for that. Or maybe there's another topic that comes up that you're an expert on. I'd love to have you back again. So thank you so very much for coming on. And
thank you.
what's the next thing? Was the last thing you published was Weathered Crag? Is that the last? And you got something coming out shortly, or with Blackblade?
Guy Fullerton published Withered Crag, so that's his.
Okay.
So the last thing I published was the Tales of Peril through Blackblade. That was our fiction collection of John Eric Holmes's.
Here we go.
All of his stories, both published and unpublished, that are his D&D based fiction.
And you edited it too, I see.
Yeah, I edited that and coordinated the project for it. I commissioned the artwork from Ian Bagley for it.
Okay.
And then we've been talking with Chris Holmes on and off about doing publishing some of John Eric Holmes's adventure manuscripts, either as full-blown modules and/or as reproducing the manuscripts, or both.
Okay.
Chris would also be interested in trying to do another fiction collection, which would be fan-submitted stories set in the Holmesian D&D universe. So that's something he's been kind of talking about. I think for me, I'm going to continue to focus on my personal Castle Greyhawk levels, and
awesome.
And John and I were actually just meeting last week and talking about maybe doing a deluxe new edition of Osric, since our current edition of Osric is almost out of print. We're down to like the last couple cases of it.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
So we're probably going to have to make a decision in the not too distant future about where to prioritize time and money on that stuff. But we've been talking about the idea of a deluxe edition of Osric that maybe is slipcased and includes like a screen and the Monsters of Myth book and things like that as part of it.
That sounds
for a while.
Sounds like you would have people, and a lot of people on this stream jump on it. Absolutely. That's a great idea. I think. Definitely.
Lots of possibilities. If Tom Moldvay's sister was to reach back out to me and say, "Hey, we're finally ready to do Adventures of Tom's," I'd definitely do that.
Yeah. So thank you all for coming. I just wanted to say what we got going on, because I was gone for a week. Ran some reruns. I was down the shore with the family. It was great. It was a great week. But we're back on Thursday night. 2 more sessions, I think, and we'll get done Hidden Temple of Earthnal. I know Allan is finding it painful. Too bad, Allan. Bill is loving it, and the rest of the crew loves it. So I'm sorry. Not you, Allan. The other one of our players, Allan. Okay. Yes. He's like, oh, it's really a slog through there. It's an old school, almost Temple of Elemental Evil. Like, there's a lot of vanities in it, which is I find fantastic. So that's going on Thursday night. We got that. We'll be back on Thursday night. Is a giveaway night. Everyone, if you haven't re-upped, Stratagem is giving these great backpacks that hold, I think, 135 minis in them for transport. They're really nice. I met Stratagem at Gen Con. They said, hey, we have a product that we really have no real good sales on. I said, well, give me a bunch and I'll give them away, and I guarantee you then people will want them. So we're going to be giving those away on Thursday. I haven't gotten them yet. Hopefully I get them tomorrow or Tuesday. And so that's for all. This is see, there you go. This is a subscriber only giveaway, guys. Yes, yes, there you go. Oh, Taco gave Anthony a thanks, Taco. Yeah, please, like I said, it's a sub only. This is not a follower one. These things are pretty pricey, so it'll be a sub only giveaway on Thursday. And then next Sunday's a huge talk show. I should have the main gang on, because we have not touched this topic. And now Anna has said what's happening, so now we're finally we're going to talk about our free city of Altamira, which we've kind of really have not talked about on the show that much, but we're going to do it next Sunday. the mapless Free City of Altamira, because we still don't have an official map for it after 30 years. So, I did want a campaign cartographer and I lost it, can't find it. But we have all the notes and notations for it and where everything is. And what's that? It's an active city in our campaign. I mean, we've been venturing out of there forever, and and it's on the map, right at the Sus Canterville border, on the other side of the mountains, and runs down through the Principality of Ulick. It's been and the adventure. You remember the adventure, Tim? Tim's character in the adventure, when they were clearing the land, took one of the worst critical hits of all time. His character got his right arm and left leg cut off in one swing. So think about that. He's probably standing like this. Right arm, left leg, boom.
Critical hit with a sword of sharpness is bad.
Yes, it was, and this was 1987, and I specifically remember. We were in Fairfax, Virginia, visiting Mark, who was staying at his sister's and brother-in-law's house, and we drove down to Fairfax and we played. We finished Temple of Elemental Evil down there. Then Tim ran an adventure that killed off all but 2 characters in like the 3rd round of the adventure. And then the 3rd event, yes, Gazumba was one that survived. And the third adventure was that adventure. It was called Cavalier School, where they cleared the land, and the 3 keeps, 3 Night of Yule keeps were put up, and the city grew around it after all that time. So we're going to talk about that next week. It's going to be a real great discussion. And then Brian, Anna, you're going to like this. Brian is planning on continuing our 5e game with our characters in 5e, so your mage, and myself and Will, if you're out there, your character as well. We're going to continue that, and it'll probably be the tentative date for that is September 21st, Saturday night. So take a look on your calendars. Anyone who's in that, yes, Will, woo. Anyone who's in that game, let me know if that date works. Saturday, September 21st. I guess someone came in the room and opened the door, but that's all right. So thanks, everyone. It was a great show. Allan, thank you so very much for coming on. I loved having you on and just to discuss. I mean, you told me a lot of stuff I did not know. I mean, I really did not. I did not know a lot of the Rob Kuhn's stuff, and that was fantastic. And thanks for sharing your wealth of experiences in this game that we all, we're all here because we love it so much, and that's the great thing about it. We all love D&D and Greyhawk. So those 2 things combined, I think we just got to keep at it, and we all got to keep doing what we're doing. And no matter what what WotC does, it's going to be through you, me, Anna, Carlos, right? Will, everyone who's doing something, Brian Blumklotz and the whole crew, Christoph, Greyhawk Mike, we're all going to keep on pushing, doing what we're doing. So guys, thanks everyone. I'm going to see you guys on Thursday, and we're going to get back into the swing of gaming again, because I really got a hankering. Gen Con was fun, but there's nothing better than playing in your own house and not having to lug all your stuff all over the place, right? Yeah, it's nothing better than playing at home. So, all right, Allan, if you could stick on for a minute, I'm going to run a couple extra screens here. All right, thank you all, and per Rox's request, we will run something I missed on the first go around. Our Reaper announcement with the rock and roll. So.
Love that comment.
Yes, that's the Persian comment I told you about, Allan. It purges all the Monty Hall magic items. It's an inside joke.
I did that last time.
Yes, you did.
No comment at all?
Yeah, well, you did it with a box.
No. Last time we played.
Oh, you did. Yeah, I forgot about that. So, oh gosh, I lost my train of thought here.
All right.
Oh, Harbor Town is, guys, I got the Harbor Town stuff. I got it September 5th. Michael Baton is missing Harbor Town. For all you that love Michael, hopefully they find him. Because if they don't find him, then, well, we'll see.
Jay, when is that playing? Because I may want to join that game.
That's 3 Thursdays. Thursday, September 5th.
Right.
That'll be in Harvey, the Harvey Irregulars as the adventure group.
Die, Michael, die.
Yeah. So soon as I'll kill the stream as soon as this is over. It'll be over in like 30 seconds. Yep. Some of the NBA is not the least expensive out there because it's all resin. It's resin material. It's not 3D printed plastic. It's true resin. It's nice. It's nice stuff. Nice and weighty and heavy. And I love, all the buildings and the keeps and the castles. And been using it since 2000. But the individual pieces for this should be available as soon as he gets all his Kickstarter orders out, and then we'll have whatever's left over we'll have for sale. All right, guys, we'll see you Thursday. Talk to you all soon. Have a good one.
All right.